You just stand up and say your name for us, and if anybody has any questions. Jan has a question.
I've seen the Gary M in Little Tub, but where do the fishing boats go? Offhand. Like, I know there must be some fishing going on around here.
The fishing boats, I'm assuming the question's for me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, they dock at, you want to know where they fish, or do they want to dock?
Oh, I know where the land... Well, let's start with where they dock.
Okay, so they can dock anywhere from Meaford, Thornbury, Covanese, Cape soon, hopefully, up to Lion's Head, Tobermory, Stokes Bay, Howdenville.
Oh, my.
Southampton.
Oh, okay.
Kincardine.
Okay.
I don't know if I've missed any.
Thank you.
More questions from the group? Yep, Glenn?
Question for Daryl. Can fish hear, and does the acoustic telemetry affect any creatures in the water?
Fish can hear, typically at much lower frequencies than the transmitters produce. So most of the currently made technologies are in the 65 to 180 kilohertz frequency, and fish don't generally have hearing in that range. I am not, I don't know the answer to your second question, whether there's any biota that would respond to the frequency of sound produced by the tag.
Another question? Yep.
How much does the fish telemetry operation cost?
A lot.
And you're hoping to find a funder.
So the tags I was showing you.
The transmitters I was showing you run anywhere from 330, I'm thinking, I mean, it's going to be close, US, Canadian, but 330 US to a little over, so call it 750. So it's pricey. The receivers, the base model is about, call it $1,500. There are units that do special things, like have a acoustic release on them. So if you wanted to work in really deep water and not have to dive or grapple for it, it will release automatically. That's a $4,000+ unit. So, I was telling a couple of you afterwards that, we try to avoid the mindset that when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So the telemetry, it's costly. So you need to make sure your question is well adapted, is a good fit with the technology, and it's not going to necessarily be the right tool for every study. So.
Same question. I have a question for you too, and that is, you mentioned, you had on the screen that there was a number of Canadian facilities like universities and I guess the Canadian government and stuff and you said Obama his administration contributed a great amount of money to your project. Does Canada do anything for you guys?
Canada is a very large contributor to an organization called the Ocean Tracking Network, which is based out of, I think, Halifax. Ocean OTN, as they're known, is an organization exactly like GLaDOS. In fact, GLaDOS is a OTN node, so we're part of OTN. So OTN is I'm not on their board, so I don't know exactly what their financials look like. But my impression is that the lion's share of their funding is funded by the Canadian government. So yes, big time. Mm-hmm.
Daryl, I was just wondering if you recovered any of the transponders. Can they be reused again, or?
Yeah, so if you work with a species that's heavily fished, you can recycle them. So walleye, for example, their fishing mortality rate in Lake Huron is close to 40%. So you can get 4 out of every 10 tags back, and if you get it back with enough life left on the battery, you can reuse them again.
Is this something, if somebody harvests that fish, that you want them back or not?
Yes. Typically people, if I've not recently in my own studies worked with fish that are heavily exploited by commercial or recreational anglers, but the folks that do walleye and lake trout work typically will put an external mark on the animal that will let somebody know that there's a transmitter in there, and in many cases there will be a reward. So there'll be a $50 or $100 reward if you can send in the transmitter back.
Hello, I think this is for Dave. Scott, sorry. Beg your pardon. There was no mention about salmon, and there used to be a number of fishermen that fish for salmon in this area. Any comments on that?
Yes, well, salmon is present. Conditions are not as favorable for salmon. Chinook and coho in particular are very focused on smelt and alewife. And whereas you take a predator like lake trout, it'll eat round goby, perch, alewife, smelt. It's more adaptable to these conditions that we see now. We're also seeing, you probably know, Atlantic salmon and rainbow trout they have a little more adaptability in their diets as well, and so they're responding better. But the conditions are not favorable for Pacific salmon.
Well, the second question is the Royal Weed doing anything to bring the whitefish population back?
Well, it's a managed fishery, and there's lots of people who are concerned about its sustainability, and so there's, in terms of trying to understand the impacts. I mean, this is a very unprecedented and unfair situation that driven by very complex factors, including quagga mussels. Like how are we to respond to that? So we're very much in a response, like trying to really understand the magnitude of this. So there's a legacy of invasive species and a legacy of different fisheries in the past. But in terms of whitefish, lake-wide, it's the lake is less productive, and so looking back to the past is maybe we can use our knowledge systems to try and inform how we go forward, but there's no expectation that we can go back to past conditions. It's a new situation. So I think people are trying to reconcile with that. I don't know. You should comment on this.
Okay, the whitefish, we don't know the solution to this because they are cold water fish. So with the warming temperatures, and also speaking as a processor or a former processor, when you have warm water and you're working with fresh fish, they're coming up pre-cooked. It's the nicest way of putting it. So I'm not too sure what the solution is, because climate change, invasive species, the amount of pressure that we're putting on the lake right now, I don't know what the solution is. I just do know that we are noticing it, and I wish there was an easy answer, because we would have been still fishing if there was.
I was just going to point out that resource management agencies on both sides of the border have a limited number of tools in the tool bag for addressing. I mean, typically they would, they can pull a lever and change regulations and licenses and harvest and those kind of things. But I think we saw from the graph that I think Aaron Dunlap the one that that increasing age but lowering catch is not something that's typical from necessarily an overfished population, which would be something that a management agency has tools to be able to deal with. I don't personally know what's going on, but there's something going on there that's quite possibly related to factors that management agencies don't have a whole lot of ability to change. So, but I know that they're very concerned about it. So,
Scott and Daryl. Scott, you mentioned the next basin the ball's going to roll into could have an Asian influence. So I'm just curious, what is the status of the Asian carp in the Great Lakes?
Okay. So there have been grass carp caught in Lake Huron. They're generally a mule. They've been triploids, not reproductive. But so grass carp is present, but it's not I wouldn't say grass carp are present. It's now where we're living with them. But the other ones, so silver, bighead, and black are not in Lake Huron at this point. But they're knocking on our door up in the Illinois Canal and Chicago area, silver and bighead. And I think that would be a significant change to this whole ecosystem if those species were to colonize. Of course, we're already living with common carp, which is an Asian carp. So there's really 5. And some areas have had to deal with common carp, and all it stirs up the bottom and creating turbidity. So Burlington Bay and those, we've already seen what that can do, and loss of wild rice, and there's lots of impacts with common carp. Now, Daryl, you want to add more? It's a specter. I mean, people are trying to deal with it as seriously as we can. Invasive species in general. So I mentioned there was 80. Now the ballast water discharge from Europe is, ballast water in general is being managed better since about 2006 in terms of flushing, and there's new regulations that are coming in terms of filtration and treating the ballast water itself. So chlorine or there's different treatment options. So you're seeing the international fleet has really made improvements, and that's why we haven't seen. It used to be as an invasive species every eight months, and we haven't seen one in years. So that ballast water coming from on the foreign fleets has really improved. However, we haven't improved our within basin. So you've still got commercial large vessels that can go from Erie to Huron and so forth. So it's the within the Great Lakes Basin transport of these invasives that's going to be something we have to deal with a little better. And I will say to Daryl, because we haven't talked about GLaTos in a few minutes here. So locally, he mentioned that we found they found sturgeon from the St. Clair area, but also walleye from Saginaw Bay and lake trout from Drummond Island. So these large predatory fishes are cruising the lake looking for whatever they can find. And if you want to see something similar to GLaTos on land, the Modus Tower, go to the Parks Canada Visitor Center Tower. So there's a radio tower up there. There's similar. People are tagging birds and monarchs, and there's migratory dragonfly species. You can go see what, there's a tower there that's similar, it's a similar network looking for picking up radio transmitted species.
I know that there's been talk and thought for a long time about forest farming with fire, and I was delighted to hear what you folks are doing. Is anybody else doing it yet?
Around here or across anywhere?
In general.
Right. Well, you said forest farming, and I think that's an interesting word, because when we think of agriculture today, you think of straight lines of crops and polyculture and same thing. And what I've been trying to get folks back home to recognize is that for thousands of years, natives have been manipulating this landscape, which is a form of agriculture as well as a form of farming. So it depends on how you see it, right? It depends on how you define farming. But so across in our area, yeah, we're it's kind of like the keystone kind of idea. So we burn for blueberries, which gives you other things as well. And so some of the other land management agencies are burning for like sharptail or fuel reduction, which then a secondary benefit is blueberries or other ericaceous species that benefit from fire. So for sure in our area, I know that like out in California, the Miwok people, the Yurok people, they burn not only for like acorns and things like that, but they also burn for, when they burn their yucca plants, it helps to make the fibers stronger for making their baskets and things like that. So, you know, there's all sorts of different applications that you can use fire for, which will, you know, you'll get the benefit of other species and things. Is that what you're going after? Kind of?
I just wanted to get a sense of, is there any idea of how much forest cover is being actively farmed this way?
Oh, wow.
Percentage-wise?
Yeah, it's, I don't know that, but I know that it's very small compared to what it used to be, for sure.
I'd like, on behalf of everybody here, I'd like to thank all the speakers. Tremendous knowledge today. Thank you. Yeah.